Hi there, I'm Corey Reddercup, the CEO of the Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for watching, and I'm joined here by Jenna Davis, who's a senior manager with our good partner of the Chamber, Grant Thornton, and we're here to talk about the 20th anniversary of Grant Thornton's Women in Business report, and just to kind of go through a little bit of what the report has taught us and illuminated for all of us in business around gender equity and supporting women in business. So thanks so much for being here, Jenna. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me. It's nice to be back again this year.
This year 2024 is the 20th anniversary of the report. So actually, there's not much in data and surveys and stuff. There's not much that has that long of a lead time. So can you speak to why Grant Thornton has been researching and reporting on women in business for so long? I mean, that's 2 decades.
Sure, yeah. The Grant Thornton Women in Business Report is an annual global research dedicated at monitoring and measuring the representation of women in senior management roles within mid-market companies. 2024 marks the 20th anniversary of the report. So for 20 years, Grant Thornton has cast a light on issues surrounding gender diversity in senior management among the world's mid-market businesses, exposing barriers and identifying actions for change. It has explored what helps and what hinders women in the workplace through a period that's offered plenty of challenge. We can see that our report has been a significant contributor to the debate on equity in the workplace since it launched. While we've seen some positive change over that time, we also know that sustainable change takes an intentional effort and clear accountability from leadership at every organization. Through the research and the pathways we identify, we aim to give mid-market organizations a roadmap to accelerate progress and build more diverse, resilient, and successful businesses.
And I'm going to pick up on one of the words you mentioned there, which is accelerate. And I think the report finds that at our current pace, without accelerating, we're not going to reach gender parity in senior management roles until 2053. Now, I've got a small daughter at home. I mean, she'll be middle aged before we reach parity at this rate. So, what do you think that says about the state of women in business that it's going to take us that long?
Yeah, when Grant Thornton first began its research, just 19.4% of senior management roles were held by women in the mid-market. Today, that figure stands at 33.5% globally and 35% in Canada. So Canada sits ahead of the global average. However, there was a 4% decline. Some of the factors that may have contributed to this decline is the lack of reliable and affordable childcare, overwork, and burnout. Globally, 7% of mid-market businesses still have no women in senior leadership, and similarly, about 9% of Canadian businesses have no women in senior leadership. While there has been some acceleration since the pandemic, it is disappointingly slow. At the current rate of change, the mid-market will not reach parity on women in senior management roles until 2053. This sounds a warning bell to us that it's not enough just to get women into senior management roles. Determined action is also needed to keep them there. We must focus or we might start to go backwards. We believe there's an opportunity for Canadian businesses to shrink the gap sooner and create sustainable work environments to support women in leadership.
So given that timeline for 2053, I mean, we're talking to people watching this video, what can business leaders do then to accelerate it? We don't want to wait 30 years to reach parity. What can we do to make this faster?
Absolutely. While our research allows us to measure progress, it also enables us to understand what needs to change to accelerate it, to identify the business configurations that can drive change, and provide actionable steps businesses can take. So the report identifies 3 clear pathways for businesses to accelerate progress towards gender parity in senior management. Firstly, equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, called EDIB, within an organization is key. For every senior management role that leads on EDIB, the percentage of women in senior management positions increases when a member of the C-suite of any gender leads alongside a senior female leader. When a CEO of any gender combines with a senior female leader, 38% of senior roles are held by women. The best combination is when a CIO leads on EDIB alongside a female senior leader, with the percentage of women in a senior management rising to 39%. Secondly, to achieve parity of women in senior management roles, businesses must have an EDIB strategy in place. The most successful strategy is one which focuses on EDIB alone, independent of a broader environmental, social, and governance strategy called ESG. Mid-market firms with an EDIB strategy but no ESG strategy has the highest percentage of senior management roles held by women at 38%. slightly more than businesses which have both an EDIB and an ESG strategy at 36%. If businesses do not have an EDIB strategy or an ESG strategy, the percentage drops to 28%. Our research shows that the impact of different measurements on the percentage of senior management roles held by women have a very little variation. If there are clear indicators of EDIB performance being measured, businesses will outperform the global benchmark. The final pathway to parity is the ability to work flexibly. There has been a dramatic shift back to office-based working among the global mid-market firms in the past 12 months. 47% of businesses are now primarily office-based compared to 36% last year, and 45% are hybrid compared to 53% last year. This is potentially being driven by male CEOs, as 50% of businesses with a male CEO are predominantly office-based, compared to 40% of female-led businesses. Businesses in which workers are primarily office-based are the ones where the percentage of women in senior management roles drops below the global benchmark.
I think the title of this, the subtitle of this year's report was "Pathways to Parity," and that gives us some ideas there. Interesting to note, yeah, that you have to have a strategy, but you also can't have too many strategies and kind of lump them all together. I think you mentioned that having an equity strategy and kind of focusing on that was the one that got us most down the line, as opposed to lumping it in with ESG and other pieces. So that's interesting. You talked a little bit about who leads these things, and I've heard in the past that efforts around equity and diversity, they need to be grassroots. Like if you don't have it being pushed up from people at the bottom of the ladder, then it's not going to take hold. And vice versa, I've heard that unless you have it coming from the C-suite and some leadership, it's not going to ever take effect in the business. Does the report say anything around who needs to be leading these efforts, who needs to be driving work around equity and parity?
Yeah, I believe the efforts have to be coming from both, but I would say leadership has a bigger impact and can do more. The Women in Business report found that both male and female CEOs frequently take a leadership role on EDIB. However, leading alone on EDIB is not effective for increasing the percentage of women in senior positions. Our report shows that no matter which senior management position leads on EDIB in an organization, that could be your CEO, COO, CFO, CIO, or other senior roles, when they lead alongside a senior female leader, the percentage of women in senior management positions increases. When women are represented in the leadership, they bring different perspectives, experiences, and approaches to problem solving and decision making. This diversity of thought can lead to more innovative strategy and improved performance of every aspect of the business. However, just as important as the role and gender of the people who are playing and having responsibility for EDIB is the level of commitment. Multiple respondents discussed how EDIB must become integral to a company's culture to affect change. This requires all senior leaders in an organization to drive it forward. Taking Grant Thornton as an example, we have formed a leading inclusiveness advisory committee comprised of colleagues who share their experience, perspectives, and feedback with our CEO and senior leadership team. The advisory committee members represent the breadth of diversity of our employees across the firm. We also put in significant investments into developing people managers and other senior leaders to enhance their skills and capabilities to create a culture of diversity and belonging through everyday coaching conversations and training programs. It's important to embed all of these into our culture and at multiple levels in order to achieve this parity goal.
So I'm going to pick up on something that you mentioned there. And then you touched a little bit about having plans and strategies and people being involved in this. I mean, I imagine some small and medium businesses listening to this might be going, well, yes, no, I get this, and we're all about parity, and I have eyes on that. Does the report say anything about how important it is to have a plan or a strategy at a business as opposed to just having this issue on the radar?
Yeah, if there's no plan, there's no progress. To achieve parity of women in senior management roles, businesses need to have an EDIB strategy in place. Without a strategy on EDIB, you won't have the backing of the senior leadership driving it. You need to have a clear path. Our research found that the most successful strategy is one which focuses on EDIB alone, independent of a broader ESG strategy. There's an age-old adage said, what gets measured gets done. That rings true when it comes to women in business. Measurement is crucial in an EDIB strategy. Our research finds at mid-market firms, the most tracked metric for measuring the success of EDIB strategies is gender pay equality. which 47% of respondents say their businesses measure. But tracking the gender pay equity remains a challenge. In many countries, a recently introduced legal or regulatory requirement has forced firms to begin disclosing their gender pay gaps. The result of tracking gender pay and raising the number of women in senior management positions could result in major economic benefits worldwide. Understanding that there is an issue is a good first step, but businesses must act. According to a World Bank study, closing the pay gap and achieving equal participation in the workforce would result in a huge boost to the world economy, a gender dividend worth 172 trillion.
Yeah, those are the numbers that I find staggering. When you look at how much globally in Canada we could see economic growth and prosperity if we tap into the full potential of women in our businesses. I mean, that's what should be getting everyone thinking and everyone's gears turning on how we can get that to happen. So, well, thanks for that. I appreciate your time on this, Jen. I've got one last question, maybe just to wrap up our thoughts on the report here, and I'm going to touch a little bit on kind of your role at Grant Thornton and then personally. I mean, I've read the report and it mentions that women often have to play two roles, kind of a leader at work in the office and a leader at home. And I know you're also playing two roles of being a senior manager at Grant Thornton and raising a young family. Do you have any comments on how you balance the two and kind of having all those competing priorities and how you keep those things moving forward?
Yeah, so Grant Thornton's hybrid work arrangement and the ability to work flexibly allows me to work from home 2 days a week. So I use these days to take my kids to school, to read to my son in his classroom every Monday morning, to go on field trips, and take those extra moments to be present with them. It's these small things that balance when you need to be in the office and aren't able to make their daily practices. I also have a spouse who plays a very important role in our family. He supports my career ambitions and is also actively involved with our kids. He coaches them in multiple sports. He helps with taking care of the household and makes sure that we have food on the table every day. We both can't do it alone, but making sure that our kids are taken care of is most important. So, with the flexibility that Grant Thornton provides, I make sure that I'm always at all of their games and competitions. This is so important to me. So, I make sure to play my schedule around these events. I also am fortunate to work with others who think similarly and do the same. So it's the support from all those around me that makes balancing being a senior manager and a mother of two young children attainable.
And hopefully from this report and from your story, people can take maybe get some guidance or some ideas on how they can make their businesses more conducive to supporting women in business and helping us all rise to our full potential there. Jenna, very nice to see you again. I appreciate you taking the time to chat and to go through a little bit about what the report has to say. We'll link to the report. It's on our website at langleychamber.com, and you can take a look there. You can also search for Women in Business at Grant Thornton Report, and you'll see that come up anywhere you search. But again, Jenna, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me.